Imagine a girl surrounded by wealth, luxury, and everything money can buy, yet sitting completely alone on her birthday because no one dared to truly see her heart. She was the millionaire's daughter, born deaf, silent in a noisy world that rarely slowed down to listen. But on one heartbreaking birthday, when loneliness almost broke her spirit, fate brought her face to face with a man who understood her without words, a single father who spoke to her in the language of silence. And what happened after would change both their lives forever. Before we dive into this emotional journey, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because this story will touch your heart in ways you won't expect. Sitting inside the grand ballroom of her father's mansion, Elena adjusted the long silk ribbon tied to her wrist. She was 17 now, but her birthday felt like every other day, lavish decorations, expensive cakes, and dozens of people who weren't really there for her. Her father, Richard Donovan, a powerful millionaire who built empires, had arranged the entire event. To him, everything had to look perfect. But Elena, his only daughter, sat at the corner table with a forced smile. Her dark brown hair cascaded over her shoulders, her soft hazel eyes glistening in the glow of chandeliers. Yet no one noticed that those eyes were crying. From the moment she was born, Elena lived in silence. The world's sounds never reached her ears, and though she wore hearing aids sometimes, her deafness remained. Her mother had passed away years earlier, leaving her with a father who loved her but didn't know how to connect. Richard cared for her deeply, but his language was business deals and conference calls, not sign language or quiet moments of understanding. He had hired tutors, therapists, even speech trainers, but Elena never felt truly seen. Tonight was supposed to be her special night. Guests smiled at her politely, clapped their hands, and gave her gifts wrapped in glittering paper. But no one spoke her language. She tried signing "thank you" to a few, but they only tilted their heads awkwardly before walking away. Slowly, Elena's hands dropped to her lap, and the smile faded. She felt invisible, despite the crystal chandeliers shining above her. Hours passed. The orchestra played music she couldn't hear. The crowd laughed at jokes she couldn't understand. She clutched her cake fork and whispered to herself in silence, "Happy birthday." For the first time, she wanted to run away. And then, he appeared. Michael Carter, a man in his late 30s, walked into the hall awkwardly in a suit that didn't quite fit the grandeur of the party. He wasn't one of the wealthy guests. He was there by accident, helping his best friend cater the event. Michael was a single father, raising his 9-year-old son, Ethan, after losing his wife in a car accident years ago. Life had been tough, but he carried himself with quiet strength. Ethan had insisted on tagging along to the catering event, and while the boy wandered with wide-eyed wonder at the mansion, Michael made sure to stay close. When Michael noticed the young girl sitting alone at the table, his heart ached. She looked beautiful, but her sadness was too loud to ignore. He had seen loneliness before, on his son's face when other kids teased him for being different. And then he noticed her hands, gently moving in a rhythm he recognized. Sign language. Michael's wife had been deaf, and after her passing, he had made sure Ethan learned sign language too. Without hesitation, Michael walked toward Elena. He waited until she looked up, her eyes startled, uncertain of why a stranger was standing near her. And then, slowly, carefully, he raised his hands and signed, "Happy birthday." Elena froze. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it. But then he signed again, a warm smile lighting his face. Her eyes filled with tears. Someone, finally someone, spoke her language. She raised her trembling hands and signed back, "You know how to sign?" Michael nodded. "Yes. My wife was deaf. She taught me before she passed." The girl's tears slipped down her cheeks as she signed quickly, her emotions overflowing. "No one here talks to me. Not even my dad. I'm invisible." Michael's heart twisted. He shook his head and signed firmly, "You are not invisible. I see you." For the first time that night, Elena laughed silently, covering her face as more tears streamed down. Michael sat down beside her, ignoring the curious glances from the wealthy crowd. He asked her about her favorite books, her dreams, the things that made her happy. With every sign exchanged, Elena's world lit up. The silent girl finally had a voice, and someone cared enough to listen. Meanwhile, Ethan, who had been exploring the buffet table, ran toward them and joined in. "Hi," he signed clumsily, his little hands forming imperfect shapes. Elena giggled, correcting his movements gently. The three of them spent the rest of the evening together, as though the party, the guests, and even the millionaire father no longer mattered. From across the room, Richard Donovan noticed. He frowned at first, wondering who this stranger was speaking to his daughter. But as he watched Elena's face glow brighter than it had in years, his frown softened. Perhaps, he had been blind all along. The clock struck midnight. The party wound down, but Elena's heart beat with a new rhythm. She wasn't alone anymore. She had found someone who understood silence. She had found someone who saw her. The next morning, Elena woke up with a smile she hadn't worn in years. She kept replaying the moment when Michael had signed "Happy Birthday." It was such a simple phrase, yet to her it meant everything. It meant connection. It meant hope. Meanwhile, Michael was making breakfast in his small apartment across town. Ethan babbled excitedly, using signs and words, about the pretty girl he had met. Michael chuckled, but deep down, he couldn't shake Elena's sad eyes from his mind. She reminded him of his late wife, beautiful, strong, yet aching to be understood. Back at the Donovan mansion, Richard watched his daughter from a distance. He had always believed giving her the best of everything would fill her life with happiness. But now, he realized he had built walls of wealth around her while forgetting to build bridges of love. He made a silent promise to himself, he would try harder. That afternoon, Elena asked her father if she could invite Michael and Ethan over. Richard hesitated. He didn't know this man. But seeing the light in his daughter's eyes, he agreed. When Michael and Ethan arrived, Elena greeted them with a burst of energy. She had baked cookies herself, proudly serving them on a silver tray. Michael looked around at the mansion, clearly out of place, but Elena tugged his sleeve and signed, "Don't worry. You belong here." Over the next weeks, their bond deepened. Michael taught Elena new signs, encouraging her to be confident. Ethan adored her, often asking her to teach him too. They painted together, played board games, and shared stories in silence and laughter. For the first time, Elena felt like she had a family. Richard quietly observed. He saw how Michael treated his daughter not as a fragile treasure, but as a strong young woman. And for the first time in years, Richard found the courage to sit with Elena, learning the basics of sign language himself. When he signed clumsily one night, "I love you," Elena burst into tears and hugged him tightly. The walls between them began to crumble. But life wasn't without challenges. Gossip spread in the wealthy circle about the caterer's man spending time with the millionaire's daughter. Some whispered that Michael wanted to take advantage. Elena overheard a few cruel remarks and felt her heart sink. When she told Michael, he held her hands firmly and signed, "Do you care about them, or about us? Let them talk. What we have is real." His words gave her strength. For the first time, Elena stood up to her father's business friends when they made condescending comments. She signed boldly in front of them, and with Michael interpreting by her side, she said, "Being deaf does not make me broken. Being poor does not make him unworthy. We see each other beyond money and sound. That's what love is." The room fell silent. Richard's chest swelled with pride. Months passed. Elena turned 18. On her birthday, instead of a grand ballroom, she asked for something different, a small gathering in the garden, with just her father, Michael, Ethan, and a few close friends. No orchestra, no expensive displays. Just laughter, candles, and signs shared under the stars. When it was time to cut the cake, Michael took her hand. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he signed, "Elena, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever known. You taught me that silence can be louder than any sound. Will you let me and Ethan be part of your life, forever?" Her heart pounded. Tears streamed down her face as she signed back, "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Richard stood there, his eyes misty, and whispered aloud even though Elena couldn't hear, "Happy birthday, my darling. I'm so proud of you." And though she couldn't hear the words, she felt them. She felt loved. She felt seen. She was no longer the lonely millionaire's deaf daughter. She was a young woman with a family, a future, and a love that understood silence. So remember this, sometimes the richest people are not the ones with the biggest bank accounts, but the ones who find connection where the world least expects it. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because more stories like this are waiting just for you.